from the documents that are on the table, that are about to be negotiated under the title of New Pandemic Treaty and amendments to the International Health Regulations. We are here today because we are all concerned by the World Health Organization's strong pressure to extend its powers, its structural and its financial capacities with a permanent effect over the sovereignty of the countries and over the self-determination of the people. It was in the wake of the COVID-19 crisis that the WHO has initiated a reform process which will bring significant changes to all of us, that will concern every human being and every of the 194 member states on this planet. This reform process was started in 2021 with two working streams, preparing two separate legal instruments. Number one, a complete new treaty, the so-called New Pandemic Treaty, and number two, significant amendments to the already existing international health regulations. These two legal instruments, treaty and IHR, are about to be negotiated and finalized, and they bring material changes. The contents of these drafts are on the table. They are available. They are available for everybody. And already in 8 months' time from now, in May 2024, the 194 member states of the WHO will have their final vote on both of these international agreements. This process takes place behind closed doors and at a tremendous speed. It is not reported nor discussed in our newspapers, in our national parliaments, in universities, nor in society. It is unacceptable. This is unacceptable because these two legal instruments will affect every one of us by reducing, even diminishing our loss, our right of self-determination, our right in general of human dignity, and it will eliminate the basic principle of democratic participation. Also, the effects of these treaties will be felt by member states. They will lose, who will lose their sovereignty and their autonomy. Therefore, every human being on this planet should understand the essence of the two legal instruments which come under the title of pandemic prevention, pandemic preparedness and response. In a nutshell, the WHO claims in these two legal instruments an absolute and non-questionable leadership in all health matters as soon as WHO refers itself to pandemic prevention, preparedness and response. WHO claims to have the ultimate expertise and the ultimate power in all aspects of this wide field. I recommend to read carefully the current existing draft of the amendments of the International Health Regulations, Article 13A and Article 42. It shall be granted the power of a massive self-authorization whenever it claims to act under this purpose. I recommend to read Article 12 that establishes the preconditions for public health emergency of international concern, together with Annex 2 of the proposed amendments. On the basis of an extremely vague concept, One Health, which basically means anything and nothing, animals' health, ecosystem, concerns about the level of CO2, and of course human health can give rise to permanent measures and even to a public health emergency, to a pandemic called out and declared by the WHO. And thereby, number 4, WHO has the right, will have the right to not only declare recommendations made by several experts, but also to impose on the people of this planet, or only to a certain region, all kinds of restrictions, access restrictions, lockdowns, surveillance, and experimental treatments. So far, the list of these potential measures can be found in the International Health Regulations, Article 18.
This whole thing brings to mind the song, "This is the end of the world as you know it," because that's exactly what it is. This is the end of the world as you know it. Everything is about to change. Look at the whole document. The article, the document, this, Article 22, and this, that the man is going into. This is a very reputable source, which is this man, is from, I believe, Germany. Well, he's telling you all of this, which, when you hear the term, you will own nothing and be happy. It doesn't just that quote doesn't limit itself to, property, houses, and jobs, cars, things like that, businesses. It even overextends itself to your so-called rights. You wouldn't have no freedom of speech. You wouldn't have no ideas. You wouldn't have no opinions. All of that is a thing of the past. So now, WHO will solely operate the earth the way they see fit. And you cannot critique it, like the 1984 movie, The Thought Police. You wouldn't have your own thought about it. You can't even think negative about it. And you cannot hypothesize or bring up your own theories to go against whatever it is they're planning. You cannot do that. We'll come back to this real quick. Just how crazy it's getting out here. This is Psalms, the 94th chapter, and the 20th verse. It says, "Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law?" All praises to the Most High Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Ruach Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who taught us this truth and continue to teach us this truth. Peace, salutation, shalom, 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 to all you hopeful elect Akiyam out there pushing this word in truth and in sincerity. And to you, Akiyam Anakwat, that are listening and learning, to you I say shalom. Right? I had to bring this scripture out because that's exactly what it is. Right? Let's read that again. Psalms, the 94th chapter and the 20th verse. It says, "Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee?" And in this regard, the throne of iniquity is the WHO. Right? So will they have fellowship with thee? Who is the thee? The God of the Bible? Of course not. So why wouldn't they? Well, it clarifies it. It says, "Which frameth mischief by a law." So everything, all the article this, article that the man is going into is nothing but mischief, and they put it into law. They've put it into law, and you cannot do nothing about it. Like he was saying, it's all moving high speed, and you don't see it on your radio, you don't hear about it on your news, right? It's not being taught in schools. There's no information about it unless you go digging for it, right? It's all happening in a super fast speed, like Donald Trump would say, Operation Warp Speed, right? That's what it is right now. They're framing this mischief by law, and you don't even have an idea about it. You have no idea about it. Which brings to mind another scripture real quick. We'll get back to the video. I'll let it play through, but I had to bring this one out because it backs up the one we just read now, right? So this is Isaiah, the 10th chapter, and the first verse. It says, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." That's exactly what that man is going through right there with the whole document, that explains the WHO pandemic treaty, right? That's on unrighteous decrees whereby you have no say so. He talks about it goes against the democracy, right? People, the right of the people, it encroaches on that, right? You wouldn't have no right to say anything about anything, right? Your freedom of speech, you might as well throw that out of the window. Your constitutional rights, your God-given rights, there will be no room for any of those. That is the unrighteous decrees, and they've put it into law. They've put it into law, and you have no idea about it. They're not telling you this in the news. Your MSNBCs, your CNN, and your BBC, they don't tell you about any of this, right? It's moving speedily. To get back to it.
And there you will also find one example of the precondition of the proof of vaccination. That was so far meant to be non-binding. In the future, as word binding is eliminated, and as we have explicitly written down in Article 13a, the proposal, and 42 of the proposal, the commitment that the member states will give when they accept these amendments, the commitment that they will have to apply the proposed measures. This is not enough. Further, WHO will most notably reserve and assume the right to define as the sole instance on this planet and to control all information that it claims to be related to health. And this assumes as well the right for censorship and the right to interfere in social communication. It seems to be so important to the WHO that these provisions can be found in both of the international new agreements in the international health regulations.
You hear that? It is so important to them that there will be no dissenters, right? There will be no rebellious people out there that will try to go against this. So they will have to silence your social media accounts that, try to rebel against, like all this, your truthers, so to speak. So it's so important to them because they know that is where they have a lot of pushback from the so-called truth channels, right? The channels that, look for the truth and try to find a way to critique it. So it's so important to them, they had to write it twice in different articles or different documents, right? So, in other words, your freedom of speech, that is a thing of the past, man. You wouldn't have a platform for you to voice your opinions anymore. They're coming for that, because why would they have the WHO sovereignty over all nations, and yet they have people in somewhere talking about how bad they are or whatever, right? That is their one of their main aim is to silence the rebels, so to speak.
And in the new pandemic treaty. And last but not least, of a brief summary that should any time be given once we speak about these new changes, is the fact that there is no mechanism foreseen that will allow the people or the member states to challenge the assessment of WHO, whether it is the WHO's assessment about a public health emergency, or their assessment with respect to certain measures, or when it comes to the imposing of a regime for what they call vaccination, as experimental as it might be. There will be simply no stop button for none of the member states, and not, of course not, for us, the citizens. So now, if...
That is terrifying right there. What he just said is very frightening. That is your totalitarian regime, government right there, right? That is, damn. I mean, you can't even believe the war we're about to go into right now. We are going into a world where it will be very unrecognizable, in the fact that people had their voices. You can always go to your TikToks and your Twitter and voice your concerns, and we're coming to a time where that will be, you couldn't do it. Like you said, you cannot do it. You wouldn't be able to do it. They wouldn't provide you the platform, and even if they do, you can't come on the platform and say whatever you want to say. I mean, that is crazy. That is very crazy when you think about it. If you got your head screwed on tight, unless you're living in some, you got your head so far up your ass you can't even see the light, so to speak, right? But if you know a thing or two, you know that, man, what this whole pandemic treaty entails is nothing nice. Nothing nice.
If we just look at it as a whole, this right of WHO to self-declare, to also auto-authorize itself to claim a public health emergency of international concern and to maintain it for as long as it wants. Number two, to issue so-called recommendations that will be legally binding and that will be subject to a system of surveillance of the people, surveillance of the member states, then the total control and monopoly on information, including the right of censorship, and then the fact that there is no mechanism of control, the control of WHO, and of correction. What do we have as a result? Well, it is very simple to say. Without the open and the open debate, without the possibility of having different opinions, different hypotheses, different methods to be discussed at the table, there will be no science. And there will be ultimately no democracy. And there will be no legal court proceedings and no justice. If the result is already predefined by one sole authority on this planet, there cannot be, by definition, a proper scientific process, a proper decision-making process. There cannot be any democracy. Number two, it is a basic principle not only of international law, not only of national constitutional law, that we have, as human beings, the right to know what we consent to. So if we ask ourselves, have we been asked, have we been informed about this process that is about to become reality? The answer is no. And there is one important distinction to be made between these two legal instruments. The new pandemic treaty will be considered by WHO itself as a treaty, and thereby shall be subject to a national process of debate and ratification. But not so for the international health regulations. The international health regulations, by definition of WHO's own writing, when you read the international health regulations, they are qualified as health regulations according to the WHO Constitution, Article 21. And what does that mean? As a consequence, there will be an automatic coming into force right after the vote in 2024. So far, it is still 24 months, but these 24 months have been reduced to 12 months only. So that means that at the end, after May 2025, the international health regulations will become law automatically. So we will not be asked, we have not been informed, and there will be a process of automatic enactment of the international health regulation. This is about as severe as it can be when it comes to the violation of the principle of an informed consent. This principle does not exist only on the individual level, but it exists only also for democracies as a whole. and it exists under the title of self-determination of the people, which is one of the founding principles of the United Nations in the United Nations Charter, Article 1 of 1946. Now, this is the reason why we should all get to know not only what is in these documents, but we shall claim and clearly say that some of these international health regulations and the changes that are modified and declared there will totally be opposed to what we consider our constitutional order, as there is no public information right, as there will be censorship, as there will be human rights not protected, as there will be no checks and balances, as actually it will be the WHO to determine under which legal status we will have to live. That means the power will not be anymore in the hands of the people. And therefore, these negotiations have to be stopped immediately, and it is a matter and a duty for all citizens now to impose the pressure towards their public representatives, political representatives, to make sure that the politicians, the political representatives, understand that they go on beyond of their entrusted vote they can use. Now, as this is just an overview, and as we are here in Europe, and as within Europe, these rules have been already pushed forward to an alarming extent, we found it important to provide you a more detailed overview on the situation here in Europe.
There's so much to unpack here. I mean, there is so much to unpack here. And this is nothing but tyranny in the highest order. I mean, censorship is about to be at an all-time high. 2024 is going to be one hell of a year. I mean, you can feel it. 2024 is going to be one hell of a year. All of this is about to just fall right on top of you. And a lot of people are not even aware. They're more concerned about PDD and Hollywood and this and that, the other. Meanwhile, things that are about to change your reality as you know it is right at your doorstep. What are you going to do when all hell breaks loose? When all these things comes in fruition? You can take it for a joke all you want. This is not a joke. Like it says here, important video, Swiss lawyer details the WHO pandemic treaty's power grab as stated in their official documents. Swiss lawyer Philip, he was actually Swiss, not German, says a Swiss lawyer Philip Cruz at the European Parliament fully breaks down how each nation that signs this treaty will basically be signing away its national sovereignty. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. The life as you know it, that's it. Like the song earlier, the end of the world as you know it. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. This is Micah, the second chapter, and the subheading here says, "Woe to oppressors." That's exactly what this whole pandemic treaty is with the WHO, right? It's nothing but oppressive. So, woe to oppressors. Ultimately, there's going to be a judgment for these oppressors. They can't allow to continue the way they are running the world. What kind of world would it be, man? They can do any kind of thing and you can't say a damn thing about it. You can't even voice your opinion about it. God forbid you do so, right? So the first verse, it says, "Woe unto them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand." That's exactly what it is. They devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. You know, your WA, whoever that is involved in this pandemic treaty, this is what they do. They have their think tanks. They've already concocted the elaborate means on how to achieve their aim, their agendas, right? And they're trying to hush everybody, put a muffler, a gag every effing body. You can't say a damn thing about nothing they're doing. There's nothing but evil, man. You know, it says when the morning is like, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And that's exactly what it is. And with that, all praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha Kodash. See you next time, Lord willing. Shalom. Shalom.